Go ahead.
I usually don't go to trance very easily.
So, sorry, what's your name?
Martine.
So Martine doesn't usually go into trance very easily. Go ahead.
And here it was a bit easier because of all the energy of the room.
And here it's a lot easier because of the energy of the room. Yeah.
So when I'm with a client, especially if it's the third client of the day.
Yeah. So when she's with a client, like when it gets to the third client of the day.
How do I maintain that go first?
How do I maintain that energy level? Beautiful question. Absolutely wonderful question. First of all, let's talk a little bit of history, right? Back in the days when hypnotists were partly hypnotists and partly mesmerists, the only way that hypnosis survived was hypnosis became a parlor trick. In other words, you literally walk into someone's living room, you had maybe 10, 20, usually wealthy aristocrats who paid you a shitload of money to be there, and you demonstrate these weird hypnotic phenomena, right? Now here's the problem. None of these aristocrats would say, put you me in trance, no, you go find someone else. So hypnotists or mesmerists would bring around their own personal trance monkey, someone they found would just totally just pass out. They'd bring them in, do all these amazing things, and then got paid for it. And that's how our profession survived for a while, although I'm not sure that you'd call that a profession at that point in time, right? Now, at some point, a couple of people hit on some really interesting things, and the one that I think really dramatically leveraged this principle was Emile Coué. Erickson did this too, but Emile Coué was, I think, really the first one who really understood this principle. You see, what Coué realized was that people respond to people. So instead of having to fight to get someone into a trance, you had this sort of ramshackle farmhouse, and you had all his clients come at once. The ones who were already trained were sitting in his whatever living room or operating room, whatever it is, and they're all in various stages of trance, going or swaying, depending on whatever suggestions he was giving to them, and they're now constantly reprocessing the suggestions he offered as medicine. Meanwhile, the new person walks in, and what does he see? He sees a room full of people going, right? It's a little unusual, very much like you felt, because the social contract you understood has been cancelled, right? At that point, the first thing that happens is the mind automatically retreats into a trance to try and make sense of this shit, right? Have you ever walked down the street and another person's coming, and you do that little two-step dance, you kind of go backwards and forwards? And how did you break that? At some point, you stop, you internalize your attention, you go into a little mini trance, your unconscious mind goes, been here before, stand really still, let them walk past you, right? Or, if you're more proactive, been here before, hold them by the shoulders and walk around them. Whatever you do, though, it's a learned response, an unconsciously learned response, which you trigger by going into a trance and activating something that's so unusual, your conscious mind doesn't even know how to deal with it. Does that make sense? So, instead of thinking of them as trance monkeys as the way that the parlor tricks used to do, what do we think of people as trance engines? And Erickson used to love doing this. If some person was having a difficulty going into a trance, he'd bring in his favorite subject, hypnotize him, and say, talk to him. It's incredibly powerful. I know it doesn't answer your question fully yet, but we'll get there. So I'm in Australia. I'm teaching a course, and part of it is to do with mind-bending language. Did you do the mind-bending language courses that were on yesterday? Hands up. They are pretty trippy, right? So this young lady is really smart, hyper-intellectual, but one of these intellectuals who's trapped in their own intellect, right? Now, mind-bending language does a good number on people like that. So she was liberated from her mind. She just went down to trance land and she loved it. She loved it so much she chose to ignore the suggestions and the instructions that at the end of each exercise you return back to normal consciousness to integrate the experiences. No, she thought, if this is so good, how far can I go to feel even better? And she did. She did a really good job for 2 days to go so far into trance land, she was probably touching on psychosis. Now, this was fine for a while. I mean, when she was going out at night, she was a super-powered dynamo. I swear to God, she was walking down the sort of nightclub area in Sydney. She was pulling bouncers away from the door and dropping them on the floor. Bouncers, as you know, are a little bit wary of other people. And this slip of a girl takes a big bounce and says, come. And he goes, what? Come with me. She dragged him and he goes, what the hell? Sleep. Boom. That's what happens when you have 100% conviction in your technique, by the way. I don't recommend psychosis to get there, though. Of course, at some point, things started to go awry, and we had to pull her out of that trance and reintegrate her back to reality, which is when she lost her superpowers. Does this tell you something, folks? Learning to go first is really important, because the one trance monkey you can guarantee will always be with you is you. So it is a skill very much like any other skill. Actually, very much like exercise. It was also a skill. You develop it. The more you do it, the stronger it becomes. Right? Now, the secret to doing it efficiently so that your energy levels don't get depleted is you stop trying so hard. Because the thing that depletes your energy is the conscious mind constantly trying to regenerate the trance. But if instead you start trusting the trance and wallowing it and enjoying it, it's actually more energy efficient. Anything the unconscious mind does is more energy efficient.